Welcome to my talk about modern times in software quality engineering. I want to present about how we can assure quality in software manufacturing, give some motivation, concepts and examples. My name is Bettina Polasek. I'm working for a Swiss-based software company called Obnovo, and I want to give you now a few minutes insight of this talk that I want to present at the Jazoon conference. So what will I be talking about? First of all, of course, some motivation. Why do we think that we need actually industrialization in software engineering? Then how to achieve this industrialization. Then I will give some concrete examples about metrics, how to set up measuring points. One point is technology management, the other so-called risk-based coverage analysis. Then I will give some experiences, examples from quality assurance at Obnovo, at our company, how we do that. Then some conclusion and of course some time for questions in the end. So motivation. Why do we need industrialization in software engineering? So if we think about, for instance, the car assembly line, how cars are produced nowadays, you know that this happens in some very clear defined process. I mean, you have, like, picture here, a conveyor belt where you have certain measuring points, where we have very clearly defined quality gates, for instance. You know it has to be at this point, otherwise I cannot put it into the next step. Also what this provides you is a continuous controlling and information about your product. Like in cars, we know you can, even as a customer, you can check online, like, where is my car right now? Does it already have doors or does it not? And this kind of information is actually missing nowadays in our software production. And we motivate that really we should start thinking about developing software as also developing on a conveyor belt, meaning that you can manage your risk through continuous checks. And what you need for this is actually you need some quality metrics, how you can really check your software, so how far it is, how good it is. And we had some thoughts about how this should look like in software engineering concretely. We made like these 5 pillars where we think that is really the important ways to industrialization in software engineering. So we have here a good software engineering process, we have technology management, dependency management, we need software repositories, and we need automatic builds and tests. Overall this, we need some continuous quality and progress measuring system. So all these 5 pillars, they define certain points, and we need to measure them and to really get the information where we are. And if we can achieve this, this will lead us to more industrialization in actually software development. So more concrete, how do we achieve this industrialization? So really the key concept is, I think we have to go away from thinking about only the software end product, but to start really thinking about the process, how we get there. So really focus on the process. What this means, we have to establish measuring points in the process of the software development. And this is definitely something that is beating non-structured output. Like, for instance, if you ask somebody, how far do you think are we with our process, or how far are we with our product? I mean, here if you can measure it, it actually gives you more qualified information. Then a very important point here is also you need to define consequences. Like if you measure and you say, okay, we're now at, I don't know, let's say 50%, but you should be at 80. What is the consequence? What do we do now to make sure that we can still meet our deadline? And what this means also, we need some kind of continuous integration where we check these at a regular interval. So if you make this check only once during the whole process of the development, it doesn't help you so much, but if you check it like every day or every week, it can give you regular information. Here really the clear advantage is that if you do this, you can define issues at a very early step in your development, and you can also address them and try to do something better, try to improve, try to make it still work. And definitely not only when the project is already completed. Okay, so now to, let's say, some examples, how to set up those measuring points. What are these metrics that we could use? First of all, how should we select these measuring points? I think this is very individual. You need to really find out What are your risks? What are your maybe already strengths and weaknesses which you already have in your process? Then you need to define consequences, like really if you find a sort of measure, then what is the consequence if this is not met? Like just to give you some examples how these quality metrics could look like. So there is something called dependency technology management where I will go into details later on. Then you can think about configuration management, about compiler checks. If you have stuff that needs to compile on different platforms, you want to maybe recheck that on different platforms. You can do code style checks, probably you know, PMD, FineBox. There you can also do architecture style checks, unit integration tests, test coverage will also be one point I will go into detail, and of course you can do load and performance tests. There are many more. You can do security tests. All these are metrics that you can actually use to set up on your process and to define these quality gates. Okay, now because I don't have the full 20 minutes of my talk, I will speed up here a bit. Here I want to talk then about technology management, what are the ideas behind it, give one example from our company as well, how we solve this. Then I want to go into this so-called risk-based coverage analysis, give some motivation why we did this, and also a short example how this looks like in our company. And then finally I also want to give some experiences and examples overall from our company, what we do for this industrialization of the software engineering. And finally, my conclusion will be that remember Charlie Chaplin. Our title of the talk was motivated by the Modern Times movie from Charlie Chaplin. When he in the 30s actually, he was sort of mocking about this new industrialization going on, and he sort of felt lost and was working on this conveyor belt and was making fun. And I think we are still in a bit this stage that software development people think, oh, okay, why should I do this like this? We're like, we will just develop and it will be fine. But we should really also start thinking about, okay, how can we do this process more efficient? How can we be more like a product on a conveyor belt and actually make software production something that is really done like another product? So here really try to think software engineering as an industrial process, then also focus on this process and not only on the product, and also define these reasonable and also helpful quality metrics with consequences where you say you can measure them again and again and again to really get the feedback about your product. So this is the end. Here we will have some time for interesting questions. I thank you for your attention, and I hope we will see each other again at the Jazoon conference.